Episode 43. This is the Inside Deschutes County podcast. Wherever you might be and however you might be listening, thank you for making us a small part of your day. You can subscribe on any podcast platform. You can also find us at deschutes.org/podcast.
Deschutes County is an amazing place to live,
Ease of access,
work, and play.
Great place to raise a family.
I love the weather and the high density.
At Deschutes County, we provide excellent service.
We're here to help you.
Deschutes County is the heart of Oregon.
Everyone wants to be here.
Well, I'm pleased today to welcome Deschutes County Commissioner Phil Chang to the Inside Deschutes County podcast. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thanks, Eric.
Congratulations. You were just sworn in for your second term. That happened January 6th. Thought it'd be a little timely to sit down, have a conversation with you.
Great. Yeah, I'm honored to be elected to a second term and to serve for another 4 years.
Well, there's lots to talk about. But I want to start with wildfire. It's a growing concern here in Central Oregon, especially now with the devastation happening in Los Angeles. Let's dig in a little bit. What steps is Deschutes County taking to mitigate wildfire risk?
We experienced major losses in wildfires in the 1990s here in Deschutes County. And ever since then, we have had a very substantial program focused on providing technical and financial assistance to private property owners through Project Wildfire, through the County Natural Resources Office, and with the support of the Oregon Department of Forestry, fire departments, and a number of other state and federal agencies and funders. So we have been doing quite a lot of work with our homeowners in Deschutes County for many years, and there have been hundreds and hundreds of homes where defensible space has been improved in that time period. We are also seeing now, a couple of years after an omnibus wildfire package was passed by the state legislature, that was Senate Bill 762, we are going to see new requirements in areas of high wildfire hazard in wildland-urban interfaces, where people who want to majorly reconstruct their homes or build new homes are going to be required to use the most wildfire-resilient building materials possible. All homeowners in these high-hazard wildland-urban interface areas are going to be required to do defensible space around their homes. So the home hardening in Deschutes County has been, we've been leading the state so far, and we're about to up our game a whole lot more with these new state requirements coming online. So that's on the home front. People often ask me, well, to protect ourselves from wildfire, should I be working on my house or should people be working out in the forest? And I always say the answer is yes and.
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
Kind of putting on a different hat, I've also been a member of the steering committee for the Deschutes Collaborative Forest Project, which provides consensus recommendations to the Forest Service on how to improve the health and resiliency of our national forest, the Deschutes National Forest. That group has been working on the Deschutes National Forest for about 14 years now, and has helped to get well over 100,000 acres of the Deschutes National Forest thinned, mowed, massive brush mowing machines that go out and mow down the bitter brush and the manzanita and things like that, and then prescribed burned in order to reduce the fuel loads to make it less likely that high severity catastrophic fire is going to arrive on our doorsteps from the national forest.
Yeah, because this is scary stuff, Commissioner. I mean, you look at the images from California, and it's home after home after home after home, and we have forest that's right next to us, and man, big efforts. This happens year round in terms of the planning and the collaboration with all the different agencies, and so our county forester right at the middle of it, offering grants for defensible space, those kinds of things. Talk about that effort collectively to get this work done. I'm sure that there's a lot of behind the scenes work.
Well, like I said, the losses we experienced in our community from the Aubrey Hall fire and the Skeleton fire back in the 1990s were a real wake-up call for people here. And we have led on both the defensible space front and on the hazardous fuels treatments on public lands, federal public lands front, for many years.
Well, even the fires we had this past summer, Sun River, Bachelor Complex, scary stuff.
Yeah. And I can tell you that
Lapine.
The Darlene fire this past year, they were able to contain the Darlene fire, prevent it from burning into subdivisions because of all the fuels treatment work that was done in advance of Darlene 4. We could say the same thing about the Millie fire in 2017 in the Sisters area. A whole bunch of work had been done in the National Forest, and those areas acted like a catcher's mitt, where we were able to contain the spread of wildfires before they rolled into subdivisions in Greater Sisters Country. So that's good news, and then there's the other good news is that we are seeing more and more of our residents take responsibility for making their homes as resilient as possible. Again, using wildfire resilient building materials, things as simple as over a decade ago, we banned cedar shake roofs in Deschutes County because embers land on a cedar
Probably
shake
pretty
roof.
smart.
Yeah, and your roof sets the rest of your house on fire. So we're seeing more and more homeowners adopt these home hardening measures, both in the landscape around their house and the structure itself.
Lots of work there.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about something that's near and dear to your heart, and you talk a lot about it in our county meetings and such, affordable housing. Deschutes County is one of the fastest growing regions in Oregon. How is the county addressing the increased demand for affordable housing? What's being done to meet the need? What partnerships are being made? I know it's an important topic. Maybe you can update us.
Yeah, we live in a very desirable place. This is one of the only counties in the state of Oregon that saw continued population increase in the last couple of years. Most of the counties in Oregon were flat or declining in population. We were still increasing even during this slow period. Because this is such a desirable place to live, because so many people who want to come here bring financial resources beyond a local salary or wage base, we've seen housing prices disconnect from local salaries and wages in the last couple of decades. When there's people arriving with a whole lot more to spend than what you can make locally, then housing prices are going to move away from local salaries and wages. So, and the affordable housing shortage that we experience is national. I mean, there's a national shortage of housing, and with that shortage of supply, there's the housing that is available is the demand is such that it becomes unaffordable, and it's especially acute here. So During my first term, over the last 4 years, one of the things the county has been able to do is deploy lands, county-owned lands in places like Bend and Redmond, Lapine, to support affordable housing projects. We've also had funds to work with. We had a bunch of American Rescue Plan funds, about $38 million total, and we spent over $8 million of that. We shared over $8 million of that with affordable housing developers in the community, the Habitats for Humanity, the Rooted Homes, Housing Works, and others. And by providing land at discounted prices or for free, and providing these dollars, we were able to help those affordable housing developers buy down the cost of housing and make it available for essentially less than it costs them to produce it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, to kind of the county role in creating those incentives for developers. Do you feel that's important?
I do. Because of those $8 million of American Rescue Plan funds, because of the, tens or, many tens of acres of land that we have provided for these projects, there are several hundred more workforce and affordable housing units than there would have been. So we help to stimulate and support the completion of that housing, and I'm particularly concerned about that because we don't have that land anymore, and we don't have the American Rescue Plan dollars anymore. So if the county wants to continue to help, because housing is expensive to produce, land is expensive. Labor and materials are expensive,
yeah.
And then you have to pay for the infrastructure that supports the home too. So housing is expensive to produce, and unless we can help buy down those costs, developers have to charge the full cost of that housing to purchasers or to renters, and that means that housing is not attainable to many, many people in our community. So I am really interested in this next term of mine, these next 4 years, in figuring out how we can create long-term, stable incentive programs, funding assistance for workforce and affordable housing moving forward.
Piggybacking on that is houselessness.
Yeah.
It's a visible challenge
Yeah.
in Central Oregon, one that people see in their day-to-day lives. What strategies is the county employing to reduce houselessness and provide those long-term solutions for individuals and families above and beyond, obviously, the affordable housing efforts, the workforce housing efforts? We have the people who can't.
Yeah.
Who just can't.
Or,
right?
or the people for whom there's still not enough
Right.
low-income housing. I mean, we have homeless service providers in our community who are helping people stabilize their lives, get identification, get health care, find jobs, get training. There are homeless service providers who are preparing these people in all the ways possible to become housed regular members of our community again. And if there is not enough low-income housing for those people who are ready to move into, then they will continue to be homeless. They might be in a transitional housing setting, but they're, for all intents and purposes, still a homeless person. So it's we have seen actually quite a lot of that in the last couple of years. We've the county, the cities of Bend and Redmond, and a whole bunch of non-governmental service partners in our community have produced shelter, have produced transitional housing, tiny house villages, safe parking, all kinds of things. We've provided places for people, safe, stable places for people to be. We have provided behavioral health services. We've provided, job matching, things like that. We've provided rental assistance, and we have prepared lots of people to move out of homelessness. And a certain number of them are able to. A certain number of them are waiting for low-income housing to become available. And then there's still a lot of people out there who haven't taken those first steps out of homelessness yet. The numbers are they're daunting. There may be a few thousand people who are homeless in our community, and that's not because there aren't people exiting homelessness. Every single day of the week, homeless service providers and our local governments are helping people exit homelessness. The problem is that people are still becoming homeless at a faster rate than they're leaving homelessness in our community. So we can, I think there are places like in the city of Bend and in the city of Redmond, the Bend area, the Redmond area, where we've caught up and we're sort of in equilibrium. That the homelessness numbers are not getting worse, but we haven't witnessed a real drop yet. And then there's other places, South County, West County, where homelessness is continuing to increase. And so, that's a tricky thing to describe to people, that we are exiting people from homelessness every day. We know how to do it. We're just not doing it at a scale where it puts a dent in our homeless numbers yet.
And you and I were talking about the three areas where a lot of homelessness occurs.
Yeah.
We're talking Juniper Ridge, China Hat, East Redmond.
Yeah.
And those areas might be forced to relocate.
Yeah.
There's a lot. You had a lot of concern about that.
Yeah. Those three areas, East Redmond, past 17th, China Hat Road area, and North Juniper Ridge, north of the city of Bend, are, you total up the number of people who are, unauthorized, unsheltered camping out there, and it's over 500 distributed across those three areas. And these are all areas where we have expressed the intention to clear people from in the next couple of years. China Hat Road, we have to do it to implement the Cabin Butte Fuels Reduction Project in the National Forest. North Juniper Ridge, the city of Bend has worked with the county to set up a temporary safe stay area, but the temporary safe stay area is intended to be temporary. The goal is to have people cleared from that area in the next couple of years. And then in East Redmond, the county owns a 140-acre piece of land out there, and our intention is to trade that land to the Department of State Lands in order to so that the state can sell it, make money for the Common School Fund, and set up a whole bunch of businesses with new industrial sites, so that land can't have people unauthorized camping on it. Like I said,
where do they go? Right.
We know how to exit people from homelessness. We're not doing it at the scale that we need to yet to put a dent in our numbers. And if we don't do it at the scale necessary, when we disperse those 500 plus people, then they will just end up in other unauthorized camping locations, new ones. And that doesn't really solve a problem. It just relocates it to a new place.
That must be, Commissioner, so important to have these conversations with the nonprofits and the other community organizations, the other cities. I mean, that communication must be happening all the time.
It is. I probably have a few meetings a week with people about homelessness response and what we're trying to do. And, I'm hopeful because we do know what we need to do. We know what works. So that makes me hopeful, but I'm also really concerned because I don't know if we have the resources to do it at the scale necessary.
And our own behavioral health program, obviously a big part of the response too, in terms of, the outreach that they do, the stabilization center, big part of that, and helping people overcome their challenges. Talk about the county's priorities there.
Yeah, I mean, there is a specific unit within our behavioral health division, the homeless outreach service team, whose job it is to make contact with our houseless residents who are experiencing behavioral health challenges, be that chronic mental illness, be that substance use disorders, but behavioral health specialists who are well equipped to deal with this population out in the field and connect them to the resources that they need to make progress on those issues. So that's that's a slice of the work that our behavioral health division does. But more broadly, behavioral health is a real concern for our whole community beyond the homeless population. I talk to people who think that every homeless person is a drug addict, and that all drug addicts are homeless people. And I need to remind them that we probably have over 20,000 people in our community in Deschutes County who have a substance use disorder. So tens of thousands of people with substance use disorders. There's only 2,000 people who are homeless. And not all the homeless people have substance use disorders.
Right.
So, I mean, you look at our overdose deaths, the reports on our overdose deaths, the vast majority of our overdose deaths are among people who are housed. So it's really important for people to understand that addiction is a much broader challenge than our homeless population. Homelessness has other dimensions to it besides behavioral health issues. We were talking about the shortage of housing, which is one of the number one predictive factors for
It's all
the
intertwined,
homelessness
right?
in a community. Absolutely.
And it's playing a game of whack-a-mole. You knock down one problem, another one pops up. Is it frustrating, Commissioner?
It's only frustrating when, I think it's frustrating when you don't know what to do. And it's also frustrating when you know what to do, but you just can't do it. But I would say on behavioral health, we, just like with homelessness, we in many cases, we do know what to do. And we are doing some good things, maybe not at the scale necessary yet to put a really big dent in the problem. But I see signs of progress. There are things like our crisis stabilization center, which has dramatically reduced the amount of people who are ending up at the emergency department with mental health challenges that aren't acute enough for them to be admitted to the hospital. We have dramatically reduced, with the Crisis Stabilization Center, the number of people who end up in jail, in our jail.
The deflection
for
program.
For the crime of being of having mental health challenges. Deflection, that is another a really exciting, basically experiment that we are undertaking right now, that the county plays a central role in. Essentially, with the overhaul of Measure 110 early last year in 2024, we put in place a system where people who are caught in possession of small amounts of controlled substances, they can be cited with a misdemeanor, a special misdemeanor, and if they don't do anything about it, they got to go to court and they might have to go to jail. But they have the option with this special misdemeanor to go to treatment. And because of Measure 110, people kind of pick on the people pick on the part of Measure 110 that decriminalize possession of small amounts of controlled substances. But we have to remember that Measure 110, the other half of it was the creation of several $100 million a year funding source to expand our treatment capacity. So Measure 110 has ramped up our treatment capacity, and now with the Measure 110 reform, with the deflection program, we have a driver to make people go to treatment, to encourage them to go to treatment, rather than go to court and possibly to jail.
Huge program.
Yeah.
Huge program. Looking forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Yeah. One other thing I would just mention that's a priority for me in the realm of behavioral health. We have 60, 80, 100 youth in our community every year who show up at the emergency department at St. Charles Hospital, and these are kids whose they are determined to have severe enough, acute enough mental health challenges that they need to be admitted. But St. Charles doesn't have a treatment unit for kids, and the capacity on the west side of the state, that's the only place where there really are acute psychiatric treatment facilities for youth right now. Those are always very full. So we end up in this situation where there are kids who are struggling with really acute mental health challenges who they just stay at the emergency department. They're too ill for the hospital to release them, but there's no place for them to go for treatment. So they board them at the emergency department, sometimes 3 weeks. There have been cases of kids being boarded there up to 2 months. And someone is watching them so that they don't do harm to themselves, but they're not getting any treatment. So it's really difficult for kids to get better in that setting. And so one of my goals for this next term is to get us an acute psychiatric residential unit here in our community to serve those kids. And that wouldn't just serve kids from Deschutes County, it would serve kids from the Tri-County area and probably much of Eastern Oregon.
Wow. Sounds like a worthwhile effort. Big time. Yeah. I'm here with Commissioner Phil Chang. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Congratulations on your appointment to the Oregon Transportation Commission by Governor Kotek.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about transportation and kind of how you see that role. You're staying I want to be clear, you're staying as a Deschutes County Commissioner.
Yes.
This does not mean you're leaving us.
No.
Thank goodness. So happy about that. But you get to serve on a board that basically oversees ODOT and some of the other, you can enlighten me on those things. But talk about that role and maybe how it might influence, I don't know, maybe transportation policies and projects in Deschutes County.
Yeah. So the Oregon Transportation Commission, it's a 5-member body. It oversees our largest state agency, ODOT, and it sets transportation policy for the state. In terms of how my appointment to the OTC can affect us here in the transportation issues that we face in Deschutes County, I would say that we're coming into a really fiscally constrained period in our state history. We've back in 2017, the state legislature committed funds to a whole bunch of really important capital projects, including Bend North 97 corridor, including Highway 97 improvements in the Terrebonne area, including some of the stuff that we see along Highway 20 going out to, between Bend and Sisters. And that 2017 transportation package, it committed a whole lot of funds to new capital construction, and it did not commit enough to basic operation and maintenance of what we've got. So we are in a moment right now awaiting a new transportation package to come from the legislature, hopefully in 2025, where we know that if we continue on with the funding formula that we have, it is going to be very difficult for ODOT to do things like basic snow plowing. And we've seen the last couple months in the Central Oregon region how important snow plowing is.
Yeah, we kind of need that.
So, that's one thing that I get to do sitting on this state body. I'm the only Oregon Transportation Commissioner from east to the Cascades. I get to watch out for our basic operations and maintenance needs and squawk if I'm concerned that they're not going to be addressed. It's going to be a lot harder, because of the funding constraints. It's going to be a lot harder for us to do new projects. So, the city of Redmond is kind of moving forward with planning around Highway 97 in South Redmond. That I'm not sure whether the legislature is going to be able to come up with any new money to help make that project happen. I'm not sure whether there's going to be any federal money to be able to make that project happen. But
dollars and cents.
Yeah, but I'm the thing I'm most concerned about is literally just humble, basic operations and maintenance of the road system that we have.
I want to be respectful of your time, but I know an issue that's been important to you is groundwater.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that and why that is top of mind for you right now.
Yeah. In our region, specifically centered around, say, Bend and Redmond, we have witnessed groundwater levels decline by 20 feet in the last 2 decades. So, roughly a foot a year. We have reached a point where groundwater level declines are so significant that the State Water Resources Department is ready to cut us off to say when one of our cities wants to come in and get groundwater permits, new groundwater permits to support additional growth. And I mentioned earlier, we're one of the only parts of the state that is still growing. But to be able to add that additional housing, we will either need to use the water rights we have much more efficiently, or we will need to convince the state to allow us to have additional groundwater permits, even though groundwater levels are declining. So this is a big concern. I think our focus should be figuring out how to slow or reverse the decline of those groundwater levels. If we can stabilize that, if we can, maybe even miraculously, get the groundwater levels to rise again, then we will have water to work with in the future as we grow. And if we don't, we are going to, we could have a water related growth moratorium in our region.
Wow. That would be bad.
Yeah.
That'd be bad.
Yeah. But the good news is that there are a lot of things we can do to slower reverse the decline of groundwater levels in our region. Cities can implement even more ambitious conservation programs than they already have been doing, and they've been doing some good work. And then a whole untapped source of conservation of groundwater is exempt well properties. So we have 17,000 homes in Deschutes County that are on their own personal exempt well. Exempt wells are not metered. They are allotted a very large amount of daily use if they want to use it. They're allowed to use up to 15,000 gallons per day. I don't think that that's really happening, but just to give you a sense that they are allotted a massive amount of water. And they're also allowed up to a half acre of irrigated landscape. And I was talking to one rural homeowner who to save his well, to prevent it from going dry, he abandoned his lawn. He had a 1/4 acre of lawn, which is pretty common for our rural residents, and he just turned the water off and is going to zero-scape the whole thing, and that saved him. He was putting 3,000 gallons of water on that lawn 3 times a week.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I've seen initiatives around the city of Bend, and to deal with the landscaping, and they recently posted some before and after photos, and big project, big initiative.
Yeah, but
you got a lot on your plate.
There's a lot to work on.
We barely scratched the surface, but it the next 4 years going to be busy for you.
They are, yes.
Commissioner Phil Chang, thank you for taking some time to talk with us about these, to explain the county's role, to explain your role, and congratulations on 4 more years. Look forward to seeing the work that can be done.
Thank you, Eric. I'm looking forward to doing my best to serve the people of Deschutes County.
Again, my thanks to Deschutes County Commissioner Phil Chang for joining us. Remember, the Board of County Commissioner meetings happen on Mondays and Wednesdays each week. To watch in person or online, you can go to deschutes.org/meetings for details on that. Remember, you can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to click the follow buttons, drop us a review, drop us a rating. We'd really appreciate it. You can also find us at deschutes.org/podcast. But until next time, I'm Eric Breon. Be safe out there.